Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Committee meeting. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. And for those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question and mute when you are not speaking. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you'd like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card located on the information table and give it to MAG staff. If you are in the audience today, please remember to sign in at the information table. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table. If you purchase a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. Before we proceed with roll call, I would like to take a moment to welcome our new members. At this time, we'd like to invite our new members to introduce themselves and share what they hope to contribute to the Continuum of Care Committee. We will now ask Haley and then we'll ask Haley to proceed with the roll call. So let's start with the new members. Mary, let's start with you.
I am Mary Glennon. I'm from Arizona Housing, Inc. I've been in this field about 15 years doing shelter work for families and singles, housing programs. My current role, I oversee permanent, supportive, and affordable housing. So I'm really excited to kind of bring that perspective to the work this committee has been doing and excited to learn and contribute with all the rest of you as well.
Hi, I'm Michelle Jameson with US Vets. I've been working with homelessness over 7 years. I'm excited to be back to this committee and to join the hard work that everybody's doing day in and day out. So I work with the veterans and also with permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and grant per diem programs to the VA. So I look forward to working with everyone.
Hi, my name is Nicole Gibson. I am with Catholic Charities. I took brief time off, transitioned from one job to this new job. So in my new role, I am overseeing a domestic violence shelter, my sister's place, as well as a GPD program in a house. So I hope to bring my past knowledge of housing programs at UMOM and then my current kind of new shelter programs that I oversee as part of my experience.
Morning, I'm Stephanie Greenleaf. I'm with the City of Phoenix Office of Homeless Solutions, and I have been in this field. I'm going on year 11. This is my second stint on the COC committee. A lot of experience in project-based permanent supportive housing at Native American Connections, and in my current role, a big part of my job is being a liaison between the City of Phoenix departments and constituents within the City of Phoenix. But this role is ever evolving in our new office as it evolves and things change and new things come on. So just going with the flow in this role. And to bring to the committee, I'm very passionate with mental health, the SMI population, as well as keeping a lot of institutional knowledge that we have around the table.
Wonderful. And then do we have some new members on Zoom? Mary?
Yeah, I'm Mary Lynn Kasnick, President and CEO of the Area Agency on Aging. We work with, of course, older adults and people 18 to 59 that have physical disabilities and long-term care needs. We also specialize in several unique populations, such as elder refugees, victims of late life domestic violence and elder abuse, people 18 and over who are HIV positive. We also support the Justice Center, which is a day program for older adults.
And Lillian?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lillian. I'm from City of Chandler, and my current role is a special program specialist. And I work with veterans with the HUT VASH program, EHV, TBRA, and those are some of the programs that I am currently working. And my previous background is I'm from San Francisco, and I had 5 years experience with working with COCs, in partnership with COCs. So now that I'm here in Arizona, working for City of Chandler, and I'm glad to be continuing my skill set and to help out all the participants that are here in local Chandlers. Thank you.
Are there any other new people on the call? All right, we'll now ask Haley to proceed with a roll call. Please indicate you are here and your organization after Haley calls your name.
Michelle Alberti. Don Bogart.
Here, Dawn Bogart, Homeless Youth Connection. Good morning, everybody.
Vanessa Carthel.
Present, Vanessa Carthel, ABC Housing.
Allison Cook Davis. Carson Folk. Nicole Gibson.
Nicole Gibson, Catholic Charities present.
Mary Glennon.
Here, Arizona Housing Inc.
Stephanie Greenleaf.
Stephanie Greenleaf, City of Phoenix.
Michelle Jameson.
Present, US Vets.
Maria Wildy for Anne Marie Johnston.
Present, Camille Bridges.
Mary Lynn Kasunik.
Present.
And can you share your organization?
Area Agency on Aging.
Thank you. Kelly Lamers. Christina Lopez.
Present, Native American Connections.
Marcy McFarland.
Present, Home Inc.
Jim McPherson.
Good morning, Jim McPherson, Phoenix Community Alliance.
Jennifer Page.
Good morning, Jennifer Page, Mercy Care.
Lillian Prestwood.
Good morning, Lillian Prestwood from City of Chandler.
Aaron Rain.
Good morning, Aaron Rain, present, City of Mesa.
Ty Rosensteel.
Good morning, Ty Rosensteel with Solari Crisis and Human Services, representing our HMIS and 211 departments.
Patricia Scott Lopez. Sarah Sims. Laura Scott Nicky.
Present from the Salvation Army. Good morning.
Mila Valley.
Good morning, Mila Valley, UMOM Day Center.
Christopher Wallace.
Present, VA.
Emily Walsh. Raina Islas. Co-chair Nathan Smith.
Present, Phoenix Rescue Mission.
And co-chair Richard Cruz.
Present, Human Services Campus.
Did I miss anyone? Great, back to you, co-chairs.
Awesome. The next item on the agenda is the call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under the Continuum of Care Committee that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the committee can request an exception to this limit. Mag staff, were there any comments received or anyone who has joined the call to offer comments?
Yes, we have received a handful of comments.
Beautiful.
So I will go ahead and start those now. The first is from Cindy Cragen of Oracle, Arizona. Her comment is, we'll start now. System performance measures and program performance measures review. Maricopa County has spent over $100 million to help solve homelessness over the years. However, homelessness has skyrocketed with drug use running rampant. The public transit systems don't have enough law enforcement to ensure the safety of all travelers. There aren't enough checks and balances in place to ensure homelessness operations are not being used to home illegal immigrants. It's time to deregulate this industry and allow for successful organizations to be able to thrive and come into the community and offer real solutions that MAG has not presented or implemented. End of comment. And then the other ones we received from Michael Phillips, comment is beginning now. How can I/we rally to make huge dents in things like homelessness? We need to think and act differently. End of comment. Next comment is from Jeff Caldwell. Comment begins now. Maricopa County Association of Governments is an unelected body that is not a real government entity. Members of MAG are not elected, rather they are appointed. MAG needs to be abolished in its current form and should be a traditional nonprofit. Everything that you have done has led to an astronomical increase in homelessness and does not work. The results of the 2023 Maricopa County point-in-time homeless count are out. The Maricopa Association of Governments counted more than 9,600 Arizonans without permanent homes and found that homelessness increased by 7% over the past year in the county. That's more than a 70% increase since 2017. You have spent over $100 million to help solve homelessness, and it has done nothing. You would not exist if you were a traditional nonprofit trying to solve homelessness. Since you get government money, you are able to fail up. End of comment. Another comment from Jeff Caldwell. Comment begins now. These documents were, and this is for agenda item number 4. These documents were created because homeless people are being treated differently at different shelter locations. No faith-based organizations were involved in the creation of these documents. There is no means of enforcement, and trauma-informed care is not included in the document. There is no point in this being created at this time. It would be better if organizations not serving people properly were not in service. And number 6, stop making homeless assessments that base entry on race. End of comments. And that is all of our comments for today.
Thank you so much. We are grateful for your comments, both inside and outside of Maricopa County. Thank you so much. Also to the committee, I would encourage you, as you notice, they are reading the packet. So I would make sure that they don't read the packet more than we do. So make sure you read your packet. And as we talk about that, then the consent agenda will approve multiple items at the same time. Committee members can always ask for an agenda item to be pulled off the consent agenda to be heard during the meeting, at which time staff can provide additional information, give a presentation, and answer any questions. Does any member of the committee have questions or comments on the consent agenda? Go ahead.
My question was on the consent agenda, and maybe I don't have the right packet, but it said that we were approving the October minutes.
That is a mistake on my end. I'm very sorry about that. Pregnancy brain is real. I will adjust that, but we are approving the November minutes.
Okay. Just making sure.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? You see, these are things that we catch when we read the packet. And we appreciate you. It's that there's work that goes into that. Any other questions? Okay. If no other member of the committee has questions or comments on the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Jim. See, I knew it was going to happen, Jim. I was like, Jim's not here. So I'm like, who's going to make my motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Awesome. So we have, it was properly moved by Jim and seconded by was that Laura that did it? No, I heard Allison and I heard
yeah,
like
there
her
were
both.
two.
Okay, so awesome. From Allison and Laura. Is there any discussion of the motion? Okay, so for committee members in the room, we will do a voice vote. Those in favor, please say yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
Those opposed, hearing none. For members joining remotely, I will ask Haley to proceed with a roll call vote. Please indicate clearly how you vote, voting stating yay or nay after your name is called. Haley?
Thank you. Don Bogart,
Yay.
Vanessa Carthel,
Yay.
Maria Wildley for Anne Marie Johnston,
Yay.
Mary Lynn Kostunik.
I'll abstain since it's my first meeting.
Thank you. Christina Lopez,
Yay.
Jim McPherson,
Aye.
Jennifer Page,
Yay.
Lillian Presswood,
It's my first meeting, so I'm not sure. I forfeit.
It's okay. You can abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron Rain,
Yay.
Ty Rosensteel,
Yay.
Sarah Sims, is she gone again? Okay, Sarah, we can't hear you if you are still with us. Laura Scott Nikki, Mila Valley,
Yay.
Christopher Wallace.
Yay.
Thank you. Back to you, Chairs.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next agenda item. And now we get into the meat of the meeting. So this is the last meeting of the year, and I issued a challenge to you all about 3 months ago that if you have not spoken during this year, like I would really encourage you to do so. So this is it. This is your moment. This is the time to make sure that you were on record to say something over the course of this last year besides yay or nay. Shade is fully given. So within that, let's get into everything now. And like the new committee members said, like they were going to talk. And I'm not saying you got to talk right now, like unless you really want to, but I'm saying that, like, again, just like we said with the people that are reading, that are giving comments, don't let people that are really here to just disrupt comment more and let their voices be heard more than those of us that are doing this work on a daily basis, that have been tasked with doing this work and being around this table. I'm laying it on thick because it's December and some of you haven't spoken. Okay, now moving on. The Homeless Management Information System team develops a dashboard that explores the inflow, active, and outflow within the homeless system. Cleo Warner, Human Services Planner with MAG, will walk the committee through the dashboard. Cleo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and hold on one moment while I get that going. I swear I had it ready and then, Is it here? It's here. Okay. So this is the system flow dashboard. I believe HMIS used to present this to you all on a monthly basis. That has sort of changed over the last few months, and we are back to provide an overview of it. It's a great timing because we have some new members here, but also because we have some big changes that happened in October that we really want to make sure we're having a lot of communication about and making sure everyone is on the same page as we move into the new year. What is happening with our data? So this is the system flow dashboard. It is a tool that we use that is a monthly reflection of who is active in our system, broken down into various ways. The link is available to those who work within the COC, like yourself. So it is available for you to check out and explore on your own, and I highly recommend that you do so. Tab here is our information tab, and you can check out this graphic first. Gives you sort of like a visualization of what is being measured in this dashboard. Essentially, it is a look at who is moving through our system. Below that, we've got some definitions. These are super useful. I refer to them all the time and highly recommend you look through them if you're like, I know what that means when someone says it, but I can't repeat it myself. It's probably on here. When you're looking at this dashboard, that'll be a super useful tool for you. Moving us to the active overview. Wow, look what happened in October. Okay, this first graph for us is our total number of active households. So across the board, this is like the broadest number. At the top, you have all households, then it's broken down to singles and families. When you drag your cursor over each one, you get the breakdown of person count as well. So what happened in October? Well, there was a policy change. And this was a policy change that the Coordinated Entry Committee, MAG, and the Data Committee all had lots of conversations about, and it was sort of agreed and passed through the board that in our community, we were going to make this policy change. The policy change was moving from a 30 to a 90-day outreach policy. So essentially what this means is previously, if you're a client, you're being contacted by an outreach team, you are put on the BNL for 30 days. If no one contacts you in that 30-day period, you fall off the BNL, and you would thus fall off of our look at the system as well. That has been extended to 90 days. And what the hope of this is that it is going to reduce that volatility and that churn of people being active, inactive, active, inactive. in our system because we have a pretty good sense based on our conversations with you all and with the rest of the community that just because someone's not speaking with an outreach worker at the end of that 30-day period, that doesn't mean they solved their homelessness. And so the hope and the part of the idea behind this is that this is a more accurate reflection of what is actually happening in our system. So you see that big jump at the end of September, almost 6,000 households to almost 9,000 households. And this was an expected shift because of that reduction of people dropping off at that 30-day period. Puts a lot more people in that pool of active homelessness. I will stop for questions right after I'm done with this page. If you just go below that active number, this is a breakout of subpopulations. And you can see here that unsheltered numbers. Like everything went up, of course, in a pretty stark way, but that unsheltered number is one of the biggest jumps, which again, pretty expected based on that policy change. So, Jim, I see your hand is up. Would you like to ask your question now or at the end?
If I could ask it now, so I won't forget. This is, thank you for the explanation. Can we, when we continue to do this data collection and see this graph, in 6 months or a year, can we then say or point to an explanation that this is why this happened at this time? So we just remember that that's the reason.
Totally. And you are already ahead of me here. I'm going to walk through the dashboard a little bit more and then show you all a very exciting communication piece that we're
and I'm sorry, one more question. Can this then be retroactively with the previous graph numbers?
No. It is my understanding that this is not something that could be applied backwards because all of that data before is functioning on
30-day model?
the 30-day
Okay.
policy, and like I'm having a hard time articulating why that would be tough, but I know that Ty Rosensteel is on this call and he might be able to articulate that better for you, Jim.
Thanks.
Ty, do you have an explanation?
Yeah, so each of these individual data points do represent a unique data pool. So the definition change is really a static item, and it's not feasible to go backwards and rerun each of these months' data for the previous couple years.
Okay, thank you.
Today is you do it. Yeah.
If we had the data, maybe, but I think it would be a matter of sort of like if the by name list has like a drop off date, and so if it's like a point in time where you're just sort of like, you step into the river, so to speak, or whatever, you can't recreate it. Like if it's a dynamic database, it can't be like retrospectively done. So I doubt that Solari, I'm sure Solari would do it if they could.
Leo, can you go back to the one that was breaking out the demographics? Okay.
The subpopulation?
Yep. And is the 4,070 number, is that the unsheltered number?
That is.
Okay. I just wanted to grab that. Now, is it potentially the reason why we have, not the number wasn't that high? Because I'm thinking like in my head, I'm thinking like partially also because that's when we were doing the cleanup. I mean, the enhanced engagements in a much more rapid fashion and like deeper, higher level of enhancement. And so like, would that be the reason for the spike being that high, but the numbers were like less than 300 around the campus at that particular time? So that wouldn't be it. So it's just something to take note of, that number is that number there. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Just hit a certain way.
I'm going to move us on to another feature of this dashboard, which are the flow details. So this first one up here is just another look at sort of that active number, but visually a little different for you. And then, oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Does that change the inflow outflow piece as far as like the 19 to 1? I mean, for every 19 people that come in, 10 go out. Like, like, does that number also change as a result of this or no? Because I see like inflow went huge, but was that inflow piece because you added all these additional people into the system and into the count that weren't previously in the count? So the inflow outflow would still be technically the same.
So Katie is the one who has handled all of the back end equations for that number that you see on the homelessness trends report. That is
Yes.
the for every one, there are essentially two people
Yes.
coming in. I would imagine that this has some effect on that. And the homelessness trends report will also have a very large change as a reflection of this policy change. So that is being developed currently.
Okay.
And will be presented once it's ready.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cleo, this is Ty. I would also add that outflow is a bit of a lagging indicator. This policy change it will be a couple of months until we'll see outflow stabilize where it needs to be. So those exact numbers and percentages, may shift as the months go by.
Thanks, Ty. For sure. Okay. So this is a look at inflow and outflow, or who is coming in and who is moving out. If you go to this gear up here, you would be able to filter by subpopulation and date range, and be able to have a couple different visualizations here as well. So just a cool feature to keep in mind. We're just going to look at the whole thing for now, though. As you can see, we have this huge spike in that inflow really outpacing the outflow. And when you further break down the inflow and outflow details, you have this very large spike from those who are returning from inactive, which again is expected given the policy change that was enacted. You see a rise in, the other features of inflow as well, which are new clients to the system, as well as those who are returning from housing. And when we look at our outflow details, if you notice, over time, we've had this pretty significant volatility in those who are exiting, but their exits are unknown or negative. Part of the reason for this policy change was to reduce that and to see because again, we know that when people are exiting and their exit destination is negative or unknown, that doesn't mean they're really leaving the system. And so you could see that stark drop here because they are no longer being exited with an unknown destination. They are still considered actively homeless. And then here, this is also coinciding with a drop in those who were housed this month. So that kind of just makes this inflow outflow discrepancy even that more dramatic. Any questions on these particular pieces?
I do have a question. Haley Owens with Meg. I was just wondering if the rise, especially in families, if that is something that you are seeing or that Solari is seeing because of their new policy where they were, and Ty can, I'm sure, speak way more to this, but with like starting to incorporate families through their 211 process, is that something that we've seen tracked yet in the system, or is that another change we should anticipate?
So that is a change that also is beginning to be tracked in this October mark. So that's definitely could be contributing to increases on the family side specifically. That data, I don't think we're really going to have a good, clear picture of yet. Ty, if you want to add more to that.
I mean, we did see a large increase in families, but it's going to be hard to attribute that between the policy and the additional access that is being made available to families through 211. So I think we'll be able to analyze that better after a couple of months. We do know that process is increasing the number of families that are gaining access to family housing hub services. So it would not be at all surprising to have that included as part of the increase in household counts.
Thanks, Ty. I'm going to move us over to this brand new tab called data considerations. And this, we didn't really know what to call it. So if you have a better word, you could totally let us know that this shouldn't be called data considerations. But this is like data things that happen that you should be aware of that could be affecting the system flow dashboard. So this is where we are really calling out what happened in October, calling out COVID-19 being something that we really need to always be keeping in mind when looking at that data from 2020 to 2022, essentially. And then also we have these seasonal increases that we see here, given the heat season that we experience in Maricopa County. Back up to this October 2023 change, if you're like, wow, such a good presentation, Cleo, but how do I talk to people about it? Because I need something to reference. You can click on this and it'll bring you to this. Sorry, my hands are so cold that I'm having a hard time moving my mouse. Okay, it can bring you here. And the team created this beautiful one-pager to tell you exactly what happened at this increase and what it means, why it happened, and yes, if the data is still reliable. And in fact, we do think this is a more accurate reflection of what's happening in our system. And it also references these other pieces that changed, what Haley was referencing, that change in 211, where they are now receiving calls on behalf of the Family Housing Hub, as well as the 2024 data standards changes. So just things to consider, things that we will continue tracking and looking at. Very interested to see how this is going to change our system over time, if it is going to reduce that volatility that we see in the numbers and that churn of people moving in and out of that active category. And so, yeah, something we'll be keeping an eye on. And I see, Jim, you've got your hand up.
Yes, this is very helpful. Thank you very much. So is this policy change now more in line with like other COCs or other across the board, across the country? Were we out of sync in our previous methodology? I'm just curious, because I'm just thinking people are going to see this jump and they're going, what the heck happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm actually not familiar with what the outreach activity policies are of other COCs. If anyone in the room or in the meeting has more of a eye on that, please feel free to speak up, but it's something that we can definitely look into and get back to you on.
Thank you.
So the data considerations, by the way, great ad. I love it. I think we've asked the question so many times. We always do when you come and present. What's behind that? Do we know? And so to have that available to us is incredible. I wonder going forward, a couple of things. One, when you have really concrete, obvious things that can affect the data, will you put out one-pagers? And then secondly, what level of, I don't know, I guess for lack of a better word, like conjecture towards what possibly could have affected the data might you put in here? The more information about things that possibly could have affected the data rather than concretely absolutely did affect the data, to me seems helpful. Again, not all of those things will be as directly connected to the impact that we see as others would be, but even just the ideas that could get kicked about as what could possibly be affecting those numbers is helpful. So yeah, what level of like solid versus conjecture will go into these going forward? And again, will you do dashboards like that for the ones that are really solid?
Excellent question. This is a pretty new idea that we've just decided to implement for the dashboards. So I would, for the time being, what we're putting on here is like, we have a good understanding that these affect the data. Moving forward, definitely open to conversation of things that the committee or others within the COC want to see as explained for them, as like these are things that affect our data maybe on a month-to-month basis. I think the more information we have out there about why our data looks the way it is, the better. But for now, I think this is gonna stick with like, over time, we've seen that we have a very good idea of how this has affected data, or that it has affected our data. Always happy to do more one-pagers if that's useful to the community. If you all would like one on COVID-19 and its effects on the system flow dashboard, we can do that. Or what seasonal increases really look like on a yearly basis. Definitely happy to take those suggestions and provide that educational material.
I don't know about others, but seasonal increases gets talked about a lot.
Mm.
That would be a great one pager, I think.
Great, yeah. For that.
Okay, I'll take one more comment.
I see Dawn has her hand.
Hey, Dawn.
I do. Good morning. Well, I appreciate the data. I was just curious, is this only the data from HMIS?
Correct.
Okay. And then it's
HMIS data.
okay. As a follow-up, again, because I don't feel that our youth are represented ever in any of these reports, is it possible to get a number on a monthly basis from Department of Education? And the reason I bring that up is in the month of May 2022, last year, they reported 1,100 unaccompanied youth in 9th through 12th grade. And that's a dramatic difference than the number that is listed here. And I don't think until we put the real numbers and see the impact that it's having, we won't start to address the youth issue. So just my comments.
Thank you, Dawn. I actually just had a conversation this week with Sarah Sims about what school data looks like for students experiencing homelessness. One of the main barriers with combining HMIS data with education data is that there are simply different definitions of homelessness. So that makes it really difficult to have those side by side. And is there a world one day where those definitions become the same? Maybe. Is that going to take a lot of time and effort? Absolutely. And Sarah would be able to speak to that much better than I could. But because of that, it's like comparing two totally different data points, which we really try to reduce that confusion in the community, where this is strictly the HMIS data and the system data that we are working with under a single definition of what homelessness means. So there are continually conversations, Dawn, that we have about how do we better make sure that, or how do we even have conversations about how we compare education data and HUD homelessness data? It's definitely a big mountain that we're working on.
Well, just a follow-up question. While I appreciate that in funding considerations, it's specific that they have to meet the HUD criteria, we don't have those restrictions in reporting to the public what the numbers are. So I just, again, until we start to see the high number, we're not going to continue to address this. And we're going to keep pushing them down to the very bottom of the charts where they're at today. So I feel like I have to start bringing this up at every single meeting, because until we start looking at this together and get everybody on the same page, we're not going to address this issue. So that's my 2 cents for today.
So,
Richard, I don't have to speak anymore.
no, but
Thank you, Don. I just wanted to mention that, like Cleo said, this is a dashboard for HMIS. So trying to import other information would be extremely difficult. That is not discounting that we should not have that information. We absolutely should. And we have been working with the Arizona Department of Education to try to get those numbers on a more regular basis. But we are really battling, cutting through a lot of red tape. So we are definitely continuing to have those conversations with the Department of Education. So I am optimistic that we will get there where we can at least provide a quarterly update of numbers if monthly is not feasible, depending on how quickly information can get turned around. But that's definitely something that we are in conversations with between MAG and Department of Education. So thank you, as always, for bringing that up. We appreciate it so much.
So I'm
Thank
gonna,
you.
but I'm also gonna say like potentially it could be like creating a different dashboard that may be run by ADE potentially or something of that nature. Like if that would be possible, then let them hold their data in their space, and then they can always come and tell us what those numbers look like. Because if they're tracking that data, then it exists, and thus they can create a dashboard, and we can apply that pressure to them to tell us what's going on in that space to help inform it. Moving on, because we're a little bit behind. But I love it when we're behind because we're asking questions. The system performance measures and program performance measures are two sets of evaluation metrics that help illustrate the efficiency of the continuum of care quarterly. MAG staff will share key highlights of trends identified following the latest available data. Dylan, it's your turn to get on the hot seat. Dylan, if you would present your system program performance measures and trends.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Dylan Belmont here with MAG. I promised I would come back quarterly to talk about this, and here I am. So just for a brief refresher, and for those who are new to the committee, today we're going to be looking at a few different ways that our system is evaluated for performance. The way that this presentation will work, it essentially funnels from looking at the broadest possible measures down to what's relatable to you and your individual programs. So HUD, of course, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, has a few metrics, the system performance measures, which are some standardized criteria used to evaluate COCs nationwide year over year. And here in our community, we've further narrowed it down to what we call program performance measures, which kind of look at certain metrics that feed into those system performance measures. And then, of course, for each of those program performance measures, we can see where the data is at for each program type, meaning emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and so on. This is going to be just so many numbers, a lot of data. So I guess as we're looking through it, to make it a little simpler, some of the things I would recommend keeping an eye out for, first of all, is what metrics stand out. We'll be looking at the sort of difference between last year's data and this year's, and so where are those major shifts occurring? And also you might want to look at any program types that are specifically relevant to you. As we'll get to at the end of this, everything that we're seeing here today is accessible by everyone in this room through a variety of interactive dashboards and reports. So yeah, good stuff. So first we'll talk about length of time homeless. This system performance measure is really looking at the average number of days that individuals are staying in a particular intervention. As a system, we're hoping to reduce that length of time to 97 days, and looking at where our system performance measures are currently with the latest data we have available for Q3, we're sitting at 122 days, so just above that 97. Two of the metrics that we can look at for program performance: average length of stay and time to housing. Average length of stay. So we can see here, based on the colors of all of those program types, they're kind of related to the severity of those trends, right? So the reddish colors are trending in the wrong direction. The green numbers are trending in the right direction. Notice that there is a pretty significant increase in transitional housing and rapid for singles and also rapid for families. Might be a metric that we want to keep an eye on, especially as these conversations on rapid rehousing contract lengths are being discussed in the community.
Dylan, so that +6, is that +6 from the 97 or +6 from the 122?
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for asking that question. So I'll direct your eyes down here to the bottom right. We're looking at a comparison of the program performance data from the last federal fiscal year, so October 2021 to September 2022, comparing that to the latest data we have available, which is the most recent federal fiscal year. So that the +6 would be, the average length of someone staying in iHelp increasing by 6 days over those 2 periods. Does that help clarify? Okay. Next one is time to housing. See some green, which is good. This is the average time from a client being referred to their move-in date. The average number of days has decreased for rapid and permanent supportive housing for both singles and families. Next one, we'll look at returns to homeless. As a system, hoping to look at a rate of returns 8%. This is those who positively exited to a permanent housing destination and then later showed up once again in another intervention. However, unfortunately, our rate of returns is significantly higher at 15%. And when we look at some of these programs, we can kind of see, where some of this increase is happening. Rapid and PSH are remaining relatively consistent, but you do have some pretty significant increases elsewhere.
Dylan, can you just remind me the returns? Are you doing that based on the time frame, 8% return from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, or is it within a 2-year period?
So it does get a little bit tricky, I guess. And thank you for the question. There can be an asterisk with a lot of this data, right? Because these program performance measures don't one-to-one feed into the system performance measures. So it's like we're comparing it for what we can see from individual program types. And that can help inform how we're reaching system performance measures. But there are some other factors to consider too, right? iHelp increased by 21%, but of the entire amount of returns in the system, is that a super significant portion of those returns, right? So I guess just something that we could keep in mind while going through this is there are different ways to interpret this data and different uses to get out of it. This one primarily being for individual program types, right? Does that answer your question?
I'm sorry, Nicole, can you turn your mic on?
Sorry, turn it off. I was looking more, so the definition of return, is that based on the time frame from October 21,
Gotcha.
22 to October 22 to 23?
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, this time frame, the 10/1/22 to 9/30/23, is when people would be returning for those who exited in the year previous to that.
Okay.
I'm 90% sure that that's the case, but we also have, much like the system flow dashboard, a full set of definitions that goes into how those are calculated. So I'll double check to make sure that's accurate. I think it is, but we'll follow up right after.
Okay, thanks.
This is Laura. I have a quick question, just to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So our goal is less than 8% of people return to the homeless system. The system actually had 15%, but from last year to this year, emergency shelter traditional actually went up by 8%. So their returns to homelessness roughly went up to 16%.
Because we won't, what I think, and I'm going to piggyback on this question too, the plus and minuses are changed from that program type.
Correct.
Year over year.
Yeah.
So we don't actually know what the baseline is for those. It's not,
Right.
at least it's displaying here. All we're seeing is the change year over year. I am kind of curious
Yep.
what it went from to, and if that's accessible. But I think, yeah, I think Laura and I are asking kind of the same question.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's a great question. So this is kind of where it's tricky because there's just so much data that we're looking at. This is like an attempt to condense it in a way that's helpful, but we can certainly change that to like focus in on what metrics would be better.
Honestly, if you did as a suggestion,
Yeah.
do with it what you will. We could do the easy math ourselves, but if it said under the box the X to Y, that would answer two questions for us rather than one. So we would be able to see the change, and we would see from what to what, which I'm still curious about.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. This
Totally agree.
surely evolve. Sorry, Laura, did you?
Oh, I'm just agreeing.
Oh, okay. Perfect. For what it's worth, those numbers are accessible. They'll be on the program performance dashboard. And there's a link to that at the end of this slideshow, and that link is places. So, okay, cool. Next one we'll look at is job and income growth. Ultimately, the goal for this system performance measure is just to increase it. And there are three ways that the program performance can look at that. First one being annual income growth. So year over year, what percent of clients have increased their income? Trending positively there. Income growth at exit, a little bit different way to look at it. Those who exited a program, how many increased their income since their enrollment? And then lastly, receipt of non-cash benefits. So really looking at those mainstream resources and how many clients accessed them at exit. And that too, looking at generally pretty positive across the board. And then the last one we'll look at today is successful exits to permanent housing. Here for this system performance measure, the goal is to increase those to 45%, just under that at 38%. Specifically looking at positive exits though, generally trending in the right direction, right? With some pretty significant increases for rapid and permanent supportive housing for singles. You know, as we're looking at this data, one of the things that might be worth considering or talking about as a group is, you know, how some of these metrics might relate to each other, right? So we did see that average length of stay is increasing, which, you know, might not be good, but if positive exits are also increasing, like, are they related? And maybe is that such a bad thing that one is trending in the wrong direction? The other piece is permanent supportive housing retention. This is sort of just like a spin-off of the positive exits metric, specific to permanent supportive housing, not only how many exited positively, but also who remained in their permanent housing destination. Slight decrease there. All right, and that's all we'll look at today. However, this presentation is posted to the COC committee event page. I'm sure Haley can email it out as well, but we do have the dashboard, the interactive dashboard for the system performance measures, where you can see each year and also the most recent 4 quarters to compare those trends over time, as well as a course and learning management system that goes into each of the system performance measures in a little bit more detail. And then similarly for the program performance measures, you have the averages and goals for each of those metrics and each of those program types, including those that we didn't cover here today. This was just, you know, a slice of the pie. as well as the full performance dashboard, which we discussed earlier, and a course on not only how to read this information, but also, if your program is in HMIS, instructions on how to pull equivalent reports that can tell you information on how your specific program is performing in comparison to the system. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
If there are no questions for Dylan, thank you very much for the work that you all have done, MAG staff and Solari. I appreciate that you all try to continue to make this data more and more accessible to us in ways that we can more easily interpret. I know that's a lot of hard work. And so I really appreciate that. That came through very clearly. Thank you. One of our favorite tortured topics of 2023, we'll move on to. Each year, the Maricopa County Continuum of Care completes the point in time count as part of a requirement from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. MAG staff will provide an update on the background of the PIT count, information on the 2024 count, and next steps. Brian?
Hey, everybody, this is Brian with MAG. Let me just say it's an honor to oversee a torture topic at MAG. But yeah, I've got some updates. The first is that we've made some relatively small brief changes to the HUD language that's going to go out with the survey. So those have been updated in the app, and that'll be going live relatively soon. We're finalizing it on our end. Going to use the same app as we have in previous years, the Survey 123 app. The good news is that it's going to be a shorter survey this year. We're setting a goal of increasing survey responses as opposed to observational responses. So asking questions as opposed to just saying, here's a person I see. Obviously, you get more detail and better data that way. I think from what I remember, we collected 40% survey responses last year. Not a great number. So hoping to get that up by making it a simpler survey, essentially. So we're going to ask all the required HUD stuff and take out any filler, basically. So that's been communicated to coordinators at the various jurisdictions around the region. So had a kickoff meeting last month, and we're scheduling office hours to kind of go through the app and training stuff, and expect to do that probably next week, and then again in early January. And then the last thing is that we're moving the training online. So the volunteer training is going to be run through our LMS, learning management system. Dylan and I are working on that. He's our guru for that. And then we're going to send that out to coordinators in the regions, and it'll hopefully simplify the training process a bit. And that's about it for the report.
One curiosity I have is we went from how many questions to how many questions. And then just to tee up a few months from now, we had X response rate with the survey versus observation. So baseline is 40%, it sounds like. What's the baseline on number of questions that we have? How many are we going to get to? And then follow up later. What did that do to our overall participation rate with the survey?
Yeah, we went down to 17 questions.
From how many?
From 26.
26, okay.
Yeah. Call it 26 or 27 down to 16 or 17. But yeah, right in there. So we dropped about 10 questions. And then the rate that I heard is 40%. And I think we can commit to having some kind of a report on. I mean, I think my recollection is that was included in last year's report, what our response rate was. So you can expect to see that, and we can compare the numbers.
And then Brian, this is Haley. I know last year a big thing was because of the amount of questions there was like, if someone was like, I don't want to answer the rest of these questions, it had to switch back to an observation tool. Does the app now allow for you to submit like the questions that were answered? I know that was something that was talked about.
So this is going to have to get addressed in training. That functionality has kind of always been there. You just submit, did not respond, right? So there's,
Hello.
it's not like when you get
How
to
are you?
question 8.
Your back is better?
I'm so glad. Yep, good. When you get to question 8, if someone's like, "Hey, I'm done. Sorry, I'm gonna stop answering questions," you would just go through the rest of the survey and hit did not respond, did not respond, did not respond, did not respond for the remaining questions. That's always been an option. We're just going to reinforce that with the training. That's probably a better option. The other thing is that if that happens on question 2, you'll go back and just change it to an observation survey, right? So I think the messaging to volunteers is just going to be, look, if you've come a little ways into this and collected some data, please keep going with the survey, just answering no response.
Any other questions for Brian? Hey, Jennifer, please ask.
Hi there, thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question. I wanted to make sure I understood the explanation. Did you say the training for the volunteers will now be in LMS? And if so, do we anticipate that presenting any challenges for volunteers that aren't really, connected to MAG or the COC in any way?
Great question. I think based on what I know, the way we used to do it, the way we did it last year, was that we would do a train the trainer with the communities that were operating these. The coordinators would be involved in those, and then they would train volunteers live. They would do like a PowerPoint, and that could be done via Zoom or in a boardroom somewhere. That's still an option. It's just that instead of using a PowerPoint, you're going to use LMS. So the coordinators will flip through the learning management system training just as they would a PowerPoint training or something like that. The major advantage to doing it this way is that it's standardized, right? So we know that the content is going to be presented more or less the same way, which just means that theoretically we're going to get better survey results that way. Little things like what I just said about, how do you, if somebody stops answering the question on question 8, what do you do with that? Well, we want to make sure that that message is clear to every project.
I'm just hoping we still get Grumpy Dylan on the streets in the training.
Just you wait.
Good. I'm going to keep us pushing. Let's go to project planning. As we've talked about a bunch here, we have a whole bunch of things that are assigned to the COC committee that we are responsible for. It's oftentimes hard for us to keep track of with the many other things that we are responsible for keeping track of. And it feels at times like things just happen on us. Like, it's time to review this next week. And we didn't really get a chance to prepare ourselves to do that well. So we've formed I don't know if you call it a work group or just a collection of people who are working on tasking out and beginning to assign or recruit people to join into different things. So we've got a long list of all of the stuff Haley's put together for us that we're responsible for, things like reviewing the NOFO scorecard, reviewing pit count stuff, community adopted best practices, policies and procedures for ESG and things of that nature. And so we've met once, we're working on, just identifying first and foremost, what are the things that we do want to work on? Are there any new things? We've taken some feedback from members of the committee as to other things that we may want to add to that. And then we still have some more work to do to make sure that we kind of plan those things out. So for example, if we're responsible to, I don't know, I don't even know how true this is, but let's just pretend like we're responsible for doing community adopted best practices in April. Then we need to be taking some steps in January to prepare ourselves to do a really good job with that in April. The one thing that I really want us to not do is mail it in, right? To just say, oh yeah, it's in the packet. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't read the packet, and consent agenda approved. I think our community relies on us to do more than just that to ensure that we have the best stuff in there. And we can't do that unless we plan it all out. So we have one more meeting, that small group. Feel free to join if you'd like. You can get with Haley for details on the meeting time and all that. But
Yes, it is December 20th at 9 from 9 to 10:30. But if you can join for any amount of time, we would welcome you to do that. And I'll include that in the follow-up email for you all.
Wonderful. So that's that. Any thoughts or questions on it? Okay, then I will move us on to the Systems of Care Work Groups update. Yeah, we're catching up. Decreasing returns to homelessness was identified as part of the COC's system performance measures. In order to accomplish this goal, Matt Finley, Human Services intern with MAG, and I will discuss the current work being done in these work groups and how to better focus efforts to increase connections to other systems of care. Matt?
Awesome. Thank you, Co-Chair Smith. So as a reminder, one of the work groups is the Continuum Referral to External Systems work group. So the goal of that work group is to better facilitate cross-system referral to hopefully decrease aggravation by clients and case managers alike. So with that, the goal is to create a set of one-pagers to help facilitate those referrals with the education system, the healthcare system, the homelessness system, and the justice system. So in our last work group meeting, we reviewed one-pagers, excuse me, drafts of one-pagers for the justice system as well as the education system. And luckily was able to receive some feedback from the work group members. All committee members are welcome to attend, but we also have work group members from those systems that we are talking about. So we have some representatives kind of across the board. And then some of the feedback we received was there was also an interest in an additional one-pager that would supplement the justice one-pager to focus on what all of the different specialty courts look like, just as a broad overview. And then at R1 this upcoming Monday, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we are going to be reviewing our homelessness one-pager and the specialty courts one-pager and the healthcare one-pager. So if anybody is interested in attending, please do. Otherwise, all of you will be receiving the drafts of those. So please feel free to review them and send any feedback that you have. And then we will be closing that work group come January once we kind of get the A-OK on our final designs. Then we'll be all set. Thank you.
Question, Matt. Stephanie with City of Phoenix. For the specialty courts, will you be including the new community court with Phoenix?
Yes, and also the linking back to the community court toolkit that Haley has created.
Perfect, thank you.
There's also some, like, I don't know if you call them specialty courts, but there are specialty programs happening in courts for the purpose of diversion that if you collected, that might be great. Like, for instance, we work in the city of Peoria to do a diversion program, and we work in the city of Glendale to do diversion programs, and we're not the only ones. Southwest Behavioral Health, I'm sure, is doing something somewhere, if not multiple places around this with their CJET team. So if it was more inclusive than simply the specialty courts, but had other diversion programs available, that might be good to know as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. One of the goals of these reference documents is to try to keep them as high level as possible to get people to those connecting points. The organizations in those systems that are going to know all the other organizations and be that bridge builder. Because we don't want to get too far in the weeds, but I think definitely being able to reference to some of the diversion programs and making sure a big part of these reference documents also is for case managers and direct support personnel, giving them some questions and prompts to coach their client through when their client calls whatever that organization is or reaches out to that organization. So I think that'd be a great one to include, is making sure the client asks what diversion programs exist here.
Also, if you know people who are subject matter experts on those things, definitely send them to our work group because Matt can only do so much.
Oh, Matt can do a lot. Yeah, don't shortchange the,
He can do a lot, but he is doing a lot. So if we could help him out a little, that would
for
be
sure.
wonderful.
Matt, talk us through what the process will be. I'll use the term campaign. So what's the campaign to get the word out? I pop into a meeting, as an example, I'm in City of Surprise and talking about, I don't know, whatever topic I'm talking about. And if you get me on a soapbox, I'll talk about how we need to do exactly what your work group is doing. And then some lady who is a former healthcare worker, a career nurse, now retired, is like, you let me know when that comes, because I will get that into the hands of every hospitalist that I know. So talk us through what the campaign is to get this information into those systems so that they can refer into the homelessness system.
Yes, great question. That's definitely going to be the big topic of discussion for our January meeting. So it's not completely outlined as of right now, but we do know, I mean, the people that are in this work group, a part of this work group, work at a lot of those organizations that are those bridge building organizations. So one is getting them out through those channels. So like one of the people on the work group is with First Things First and is in charge of the program work at First Things First, which has a ton of different programs. So she has committed to being able to disseminate that through the First Things First network. I think that will be great, because then that's at neighborhood family clinics. Yeah, everywhere. But outside of that, we'll definitely be posting it to our website. We'll be having LMS trainings that accompany each of these one-pagers to help go a little bit more in depth. And so then I welcome anybody that says like, oh yes, I have a connection to this group or this system, and I want to help push this out. That would be very, very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go into the other work groups. So our work groups, for those of you who are new, this one started as basically the work group that Matt is in. We split it into two, and we decided to have another work group that was focused on creating stronger connections within the homelessness system rather than within to external systems. And this is all governed by reducing returns to homelessness is the true north for these work groups. And so one of the things, so on the internal connection system, we are focusing on identifying any breakdowns that could be occurring within rapid rehousing specifically, and that are causing people to return to homelessness at a higher rate. It's not that returns to homelessness are a high percentage from rapid programs. It's just that there's an average percentage at the time of the analysis that drove this, combined with a high rate of people returning from rapid programs. So we decided that that was a good opportunity for us to focus our attention into. And so one of the things, and we're driving concrete deliverables, like that's the goal. Then Marcy, more than anyone, is the champion of this for this particular work group. Like, we're not done until we get something done. And what we're working to do is bring together rapid rehousing funders and rapid rehousing providers in conversations around what things could be done to help reduce those returns within rapid programs. And so we've convened providers, got a ton of really phenomenal feedback, convened funders and providers together, got a great conversation, and have essentially whittled it down to some things that we want to do to create stronger connections, like peer connections and relationships for people who are in rapid programs that can help them sustain, just a strong social life, and that in turn will help them sustain their time in housing. And increasing income is one of the big topics of focus as well. And then on the contractor side, and this is where the conversation with the funders is really important, is we're working to do a couple of things. One, we're trying to find if we can make some connections. So when one, say, provider is no longer being funded for whatever reason, but a rapid program is going to another provider, to try to create some links so that the folks who are passing from one project to the next don't slip through the cracks. That's one of the things that we're finding can be an issue, is if you have to shrink someone's subsidy from what could have been 24 months to now what may be 6 or 8 months, and they're exiting from that subsidy prematurely, they're at greater risk of returning to homelessness. So we're trying to see if we can find some links between provider to provider in case there's in the event of a change in funding. And we're also trying to see if we can get funders to commit to matching contract length to best practice. One of the things that we found in the research, shout out data analytics work group from last year, or from earlier this year, is we found that people at the 9-month mark are falling into homelessness out of rapid programs at a spiked rate, basically. And so the best practice, and this is true for ESG as well as non-ESG rapid programs, is up to 24 months for that subsidy. But subsidies are often ending at 9 months and people are falling on the streets. And a lot of that we know has to do with contract length being oftentimes 1 year. And so you're not going to usually sign someone up for or try to keep someone on a subsidy that can go 15 to 18 or 24 months if your contract is only a year long, knowing that you don't want to have them just fall off at the end of your contract term. So we're trying to work with funders to see what kinds of adjustments could be made to contract lengths. We've had some great conversations. We've gotten some feedback. Haley, do you want to speak to the feedback that we got from our funders a little bit?
Yeah, so we decided to start our partnership with the ESG committee because since they receive federal funding, that's going to be the most stringent funding, which has the least flexibility. And so working with that committee, they gave us a lot of really good feedback about things that they can and can't cover. I think a happy accident of all of this was we found out that ESG covers a lot more than we had originally thought. So not to put any pressure on ESG, but I know they're going to be working on a training shortly to really be able to dive into what they can and cannot cover. So that'll be more readily available, which is great. And they've also given us some ideas on how to work with private funders to get the things that ESG cannot fund funded. So I know one of the other things we had talked about was sort of either creating a training or a toolkit for organizations to sort of talk about, like, how do we ask for this money? How do we explain that, you know, move-in kits are really important and this can really contribute to the success of someone moving into a new place? So just things like that. I think that's what I have off the top of my head from ESG. I don't know if there's anything else you can think of.
No, that's it. Yeah, big topic is flex funds. What does ESG already fund that providers don't know about? Let's make sure that the education is there. And then in terms of, other things, where else may we be able to get some funds from if we can state a strong enough case? So, any thoughts or questions on the work groups for Matter-I? All right, great. Moving on. So committee co-chairs serve overlapping terms of 2 years each. As one of our co-chairs' terms comes to an end, we are seeking a COC committee member to serve potentially. Haley Owens, Human Services Planner with MAG, will share more information about what the position entails.
Yes, I would just like to start off with a big thank you to Richard for his time as our co-chair for the last 2 years. You have been a great asset and we're very grateful that you were able to serve. So because the terms are concurrent, the terms run for 2 years, everybody has to reapply if they're interested in being chair. This is pretty standard. So if you are interested, you can submit a letter of interest. It does not have to be anything fancy. We do not have like a standardized letter. Just shoot me an email saying that you're interested, why you're interested, what you hope to bring to the position. So that is open to everybody. We would love it if we could get all that information so we can get it out to the committee for our January meeting and make a decision. So if you're thinking about it at all, definitely would encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions specifically. But just some of the expectations for the chair is, in addition to facilitating the meeting, we do have agenda setting that happens 2 weeks before our meeting. It's pretty quick. It's like 30 minutes, but we just go over all the stuff that we're going to chat about and get any input. And then just, as with all members of our committees, just an expectation of participation. So if you have any questions about time commitment, it's not scary. All these things that you're hearing Richard and Nate say, I write them, I do them for them. So it's not like you're expected to like come with a written script or anything. MAG staff does help quite a bit with that. So really it is like helping that facilitation. and, being the voice for the committee. So yeah, so I'll take any questions, but definitely want to, again, say thank you so much to Richard. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Question, are there term limits in terms of being able to continue? Like, I know I have to reapply, but I'm saying, are there
Well,
term
that would
limits,
have
like,
been a really
okay.
good piece of information for me to look up. I'm not sure, but in our follow-up email, I will send that information out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing.
Yes.
You also don't have to have served on the committee for any minimum amount of time. So like Nate said in our onboarding,
It was brand new.
we kind of like threw him into the fire immediately. So even if you just joined, don't discount yourself. You can also feel free to throw your hat there.
All right. Are you sure? Are we done? All right. So moving on to the next agenda item, if there's no thoughts or questions. Are there any thoughts or questions about that one? Okay. So do committee members have any action or discussion items for future meetings to bring to the table?
Yes. So, starting in January and then for each month after that, while they are in session, can we have an in-person legislative update, with the first one for certain being like with the Housing Coalition in person? I'm gonna emphasize that, to discuss like what their legislative priorities are going to be and what the landscape is going to look like over the months to come, but then like continuing in person, to be able to show up to give us the information in person, so that this way we can do more than like, Dylan, I greatly appreciate you, but like we are in like a perfect storm as we're moving into this legislative session, and we should be able to have active conversation about what they're actively doing and what we actively need to be discussing in person. So if we could have that in person, I would appreciate that. The legislative update over the next several months, but especially January in person.
Okay, perfect. And then every month through the legislative session.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'd just like a follow-up from Cleo's presentation, to see maybe a few months from now, so queuing it up for February or March, as we get into the norm of this new way of counting things, if we can see what effect it's had a few months from now. I'd love to get a follow-up on that, because you're not just standard on the agenda any longer, right?
No, it's usually on your consent.
Yeah. So maybe like for March, I think that would be great for future. Yeah. Give it 3 months.
Okay, yes, actually, Haley just reminded me of something. I guess I'll throw it out there. If these data things are really interesting to you and you do want a monthly review of the system flow dashboard, I, along with a member of the Solari HMIS team, hosts a monthly dashboard office hours. It's usually the last Tuesday of the month, from 10 to 11. And this month it is on the 21st instead, so that it is not on the 26th. And this month we're just doing the system flow dashboard, but usually it's an opener with the system flow dashboard, as well as a highlight of another one of our available tools in our community. And that rotates every month what we do. So it's usually announced in the newsletter, and I send out an email blast to everyone who is on our COC email list. So just if you're interested in that, please feel free to show up.
Thank you.
Marcy with Home Inc. I'd just like to ask if for that future agenda, since we talked about getting data from the Department of Education, if that's something with enough lead time, do you think that we could try to put some side-by-side numbers from HMIS with the Department of Education, do a little outreach, maybe ask someone to join or at least visit the work group to provide that information to us so we could see what those numbers look like?
I will commit to us trying as much as we can. The getting data from ADE is a little challenging, but we can certainly have that conversation and see even if they can't provide us, because I think a lot of it is around obviously like personally identifying information. So if they could just get some raw numbers and then be presenting that side by side with what is on the dashboard, I think that would, like you're saying, be really valuable. So I don't want to say yes and commit AD to anything, but we will certainly look into it.
You don't have to commit, but we can all go stand outside their office.
Hey, there we
Just-
go.
Just throw it out
Action.
there.
This is why Marcy is my favorite work group member.
If I could make just a quick comment, just like you were suggesting, Richard, that we have legislative affairs come to the meetings, would it be appropriate if we invited the state coordinator to come to the meetings? And then perhaps because she's giving the information, we can get access to it that way. Would that be workable for everyone?
I can certainly make that request. We may, I don't know if we could do it necessarily monthly. I know with the legislative session, because it's short in Arizona, we commit to doing that. We can commit to doing that monthly. But just based on what other stuff is in our on our agenda. But certainly I will look into it and see if that is something that the state coordinator is open to. And if we can get her to if she's interested in presenting on a monthly basis and feels that would be useful, we can certainly ask. Yeah.
Haley, I'd like to go ahead and do that on behalf of the committee, if you don't mind. I'm working with them right now on a pretty large effort. And I'm in regular communication with both her and Rita and Dee Dee.
Sure. Yeah. And then if you just want to like loop me in with whatever the result is, I would love that. Thank you.
You bet. I can do that. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move on. Is there anyone on the committee that has any other announcements or events that they'd like to highlight? Or MAG staff? Brian?
Thanks, Co-Chair. Just wanted to mention that the Coordinated Entry Collaborative is recruiting right now. We're looking for folks representing funders, people with lived experience, Veterans Association, and shoot, there's one more. Hold on. And COC board members. So that's going to be up for 3 weeks. We'll be closing the posting on the 5th of January and then doing some interviews. So if anybody's interested, we would love to have some more representation. We're hoping to fill the 15 person collaborative. Thank you. 4 openings, and it is it's live. It'll be live on the webpage by tomorrow, maybe in the next 10 minutes. But the e-blast did just go out, so you should also have it in your inboxes. Thank you.
That collaborative is doing great work. So yeah, tell your friends.
We also, starting in 2 minutes, have a public input session on revisions to the NOFO scorecard happening in that room over there. There's also a virtual option with the registration link on the COC event page calendar. If you're not able to make it, have no fear. The NOFO scorecard is going to make its rounds to plenty of committees, including this one, perhaps early next year.
But you're already here, so just grab a donut and go next door.
There we go.
The last thing that I wanted to mention before I turn it over to Richard is you may have heard us say committee collaborative. What does this mean? So starting in January, all of our committees are moving to collaboratives. It is mostly just semantics for everybody, except for, of course, this group. It's going to allow us to peel back the formality of this group, which I think is going to be so wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. We will continue with our hybrid model. So we'll still have, you'll have the opportunity to join us here in person or online if that is better fit for you. But we will not be streaming on YouTube anymore. So if you have somebody who is interested in attending, we can send their Zoom link directly to them. So that does give us a little bit more flexibility and a little more connection with other providers, folks on the ground, people who want to come and show up at our meetings. So definitely looking forward to that. So if you have any questions about the specifics of that or what that looks like, definitely just let us know. But you're going to start hearing everything move to collaborative besides the COC board. That'll still remain the board. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. 1,231 as of October 31st. That's not a trick or a treat. 1,231 people that have passed away while experiencing homelessness so far this year. That is the most recent number we have from the medical examiner's office. I raise that because one, we need to be aware of it. Secondly, this time next year, the world looks very different because ARPA has disappeared. And so at some point, we need to have a conversation about the money that's going out, the number of people that it impacts, and the jobs that are going to be lost as well as a result of it. But like, if we are not pushing these conversations to funders, if we are not pushing these conversations to decision makers and policymakers, if we are not pushing these conversations, and then all of a sudden when we wake up on July 1st and the world is beginning to be different, and then like by September 1st, we're like, wait a second, I'm seeing something a little bit different. And then by this time next year, and you're like, whoa, why do we have like 50, 100 person encampments all over the valley because we decided to play whack-a-mole about it? Like, we need to be having this conversation. It's to me the most important conversation that we can have. And so I just want to raise that to people and put it on your radar, that if you are not having these conversations about how the system is about to be different, then we are failing at our work. And I hate to be like downer at the end of an awesome meeting, because it was, but like, we need to be having these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Does anyone have any further comments, announcements? Well, then with no further business, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.